This is podcast 18 with Alan Du. Alan, welcome on.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks for having me here, Alston.
You're welcome. So it's been a while since we last talked. I don't think I even saw you off like your senior year of high school. So
Yeah.
I guess we got to play some catch up. What's happened since then? First year of college versus high school. How did that go?
Uh, you mean my first year of college versus my first year of high school, or just college versus high school in general? Or
You could go both. You could go
yeah,
both.
yeah. I feel like college. I thought college would be somewhat of a continuation of high school, and that was quickly proven wrong since I didn't have to get up at like 6:30 a.m.
Mm.
Yeah. With
Did you
college, I
did you still
think
get up at 6:30 a.m.
no,
early on? No, no, no. Okay.
no. That is long gone.
Uh-huh.
Never again.
Uh-huh. Until you start working, sure.
Mm, well, I'll enjoy my 9 a.m. wake up times when I can. Think in college you have a lot more freedom. Like, I knew you would always have more freedom, living by yourself, uh,
Mm,
choosing what time you get to attend your classes, but it's really the whole day is to yourself, and you sort of have to plan each week out yourself. There's not really a set schedule in college, other than the classes that you go to,
mm,
but there's a lot of the time just there, and it's up to you to either do the work or not. And I think that's a lot different from high school, where number one, school is really structured. It's always the same time every week.
mm.
Uh, Number two, you get regular assignments in high school. And number three, you also have your parents to sort of, you know, keep you in check in high
Mm.
school.
Do you think like high school is less stressful or college is less stressful?
Just for me, I would
Uh-huh.
say college is less stressful.
I felt that way too. Because
Mm,
it's you don't have that structure on you. It's like
yeah.
you have to wake up at 6. You don't even go to sleep until like what 11. You're worked to the bone until you're just constantly bombarded with information until 3 o'clock. Then you probably have like tennis afterwards, or some after school activity, and you get to your homework. It's already like 8 o'clock, right? And then
Yeah.
it's just your whole day stuffed. Versus college, it's not that packed, right?
There's also just more classes in high school. So even
Mm.
if you have less work per class, you still have to keep 8 different classes uh, lined up in your head. Whereas in college, you can like focus on two or three.
Right. Now, what are you doing now in college? What major are you studying? Are you still figuring things out? And do you think that has a role in less stress in a way, if being more specialized versus like keep fighting on a wide front, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But since I'm doubling in math and comp sci, I don't think I can speak for the less stress side of things.
Mm,
Uh, but even still, some classes are tough. I feel like because there's only a few of them, I can sort of focus down on them. And I think that's easier than just trying to spread your effort all across 8 different classes.
right. Do you still have to take like some intro freshman courses that like writing essays or whatnot?
Yeah. There are always some gen eds, but I know I don't have many.
What made you decide go for math and comp sci?
I'm not sure. I think I just enjoyed those two subjects in high school, so I
Mm,
just thought might as well give it a shot in college as well.
gotcha. Are you doing like a proof-based class or
I
not yet?
w- I will be next semester. That's
Next
going to be
semester?
my proof-based math class. See
Oh
how that
boy.
goes.
Math
Mm.
reasoning? That's what we call it at Rutgers. I don't know what you call it.
I don't know. Here it's like so it's calculus, but you like prove it from the ground up. So if that's
Oh,
similar to
real
math reasoning,
analysis. Real analysis.
pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Undergrad real
using real numbers.
analysis.
Oh, okay. So you guys don't even have a math reasoning class before real analysis. You jump straight into it. Yeah, I wasn't good with that at all. But you probably different story. Do you feel that math before this proof class is a lot of calculation based? It's not really any reasoning or proof based, right? You're just told things and you just do them. Is that something you feel or no?
I will say there's a class similar to math reasoning,
Mm,
but because I took a math track that sort of has proofs built into it. It's not that much of a proof-based class, but it has proofs in it.
mm,
I'm exempt from that math reasoning like class, so I wouldn't know about it. So
gotcha.
the sort of undergrad real analysis would be the first proof-based math class that I take, although it won't be for many people taking it.
Mm, mm. Now you say like your days in college, is much more freedom, right? It's not like high school super structured and all. How do you like the food there? You get to eat all you want with like meal swipe or like how's the food situation? You gain weight during college or you were able to keep that diet pretty strict?
I gained a few pounds during college,
Mm.
nothing much. I feel like just because it is all you can eat, but just because you can eat all that you can doesn't mean that you should. Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes the food is I feel like it's hit or miss some days. So
Mm.
one day it'd be pretty good, and then the next day just eat less because it's not that great.
Gotcha, gotcha. So like we're past the end of the semester now. Everyone's graduating, and so I first contacted you for podcast about like 3 weeks ago, kind of to give you a heads up. But I think you were busy studying for finals then,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So how's the final experience of college compared to high school, I guess? How do you study too?
The finals in college actually matter. Like like uh Joseph went to AIT, like the whole UCVTS system had the same grading system for finals. It was just 10%
Mm,
of your grade was finals. But in college, all my classes like, oh, this is 25% of your grade, 27% of your grade, 35% of your grade, and suddenly finals mean a lot more when they
mm,
take up that much more of your grade. So studying for them actually became a real thing. Whereas in high school, if you did well throughout the entire semester, you could sort of take it easy that finals week. And that's just not an option here.
Do you think the weight put on finals is a good thing or justified? Or is the high school system better where kind of like, the weight is spread out more evenly?
I think there should be more exams during the semester so that the final doesn't have to be weighted that much. I
Mm,
understand why the finals are weighted that much, just because there's not many grades in college you get.
mm,
But I feel like that just means that there should be more grades that you get in college so that finals don't take up that much of your grade.
mm. Do you think the high school like education is more conducive to learning? Because it's not like there's a lot of second chances spread throughout of it, right? It's not like all the eggs in one basket and it's like you have a bad day and that final you bomb and it's over for the whole semester, But then the
Mhm.
other side of it is that, if you know what you're doing, the final should be a piece of cake,
Yeah.
right? So what's the right system in a way?
I think it depends on how organized the person is. I
Mm,
feel like if you're organized in college and you just keep up to pace with the class, the finals won't be that big an issue. But if you sort of fall behind, like if you fall behind in a class in college, I feel like it's going to be really difficult to get back on track. I would say you have to do more work in high school, but in college you have to be a lot more consistent in just keeping up with it because no one's going to wait for you. In high school, maybe because the class sizes are smaller, a teacher can sort of wait for you, uh, sort of like adjust the pace of the class based on maybe like a couple students
mm,
if the class is slower or faster, but that just doesn't happen in college.
right, right. Because are your classes big? Like 50 people, 100 people? What's it like?
Yeah, I have one big class. It's just like the general comp sci class.
Mm.
So that's pretty big.
Is that the intro comp sci or because you AP'd out of the intro classes and so you are now in like the more advanced classes?
It's not an intro class, but there's like a core track of comp sci that everyone has to take. So it's in that track.
Did you do
So
Java this semester in that
no, Java
class?
was last semester because I AP'd out of there's two Java classes in that track, and I
Mm.
AP'd out of the first one, but not the second one.
Are you doing for loops or is it like data structures?
Oh, we did data structures last semester. That's the one I didn't AP out of. And then this semester was actually C.
Oh wow. Okay, so like
Yeah,
computer architecture almost,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Ah, you're very advanced then. I see. I see. What do you find anything interesting about comp sci that like or different about comp sci now that you're in college compared to high school? Or it's like, same thing.
I would say the data structures because in
Mm,
high school everything was an array.
mm,
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about data structures in high school because mm, they just weren't that important.
mm,
But in college, and I realized like that different that you can store data in a lot of different ways,
mm.
and depending on how you store it, it can be more efficient or less efficient for certain tasks.
I see. My extended knowledge of efficiency data is big O. How do you write the
Yeah.
code? That's the extent of my knowledge.
Mm.
I don't, and it's very introductory. But what do you mean by efficient? Like an example, or it would get too complicated.
So like take an array. You can easily get the third element of an array
Mm,
or the sixth. If you want an element of the array, it can easily get it for you in like an instant. So that would
mm,
be since you said you know big O, that would be like O of one
mm,
because it does the same amount of work every time.
mm-hmm. Or just pluck that element.
Yeah. But let's say you have a different kind of structure. So like
You ran a for
let's
loop starting with the first one and look each element after that.
yeah. So that would be called a linked list. So it would be like one element that points to the next one, that points to the next one, that points to the next one, and so on and so forth. So
Mm,
you would start at a head element. And if you wanted to get, say, the sixth element, you would have to ask the first element, oh, what's the next one? And then so you would go to the second one, ask the second one, what's the third one? And then so on and so forth.
mm,
So like the time it would take for you to get an element in that linked list would depend on which element you wanted. If you want the first element, that's great. It doesn't have
mm,
to do any extra work
right,
because you're asking the first element for itself. But if you want say the 10,000th element, you're going to have to ask 10,000 different elements until you get to it.
right,
So that would be O of n.
right. Depending on what.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
gotcha. Do you feel that like learning comp sci, it's very how do you say this? Logically structured. What the computer does exactly what you tell it to do. Versus in life, when you're interacting with other people, you can tell a person to do something, they don't do exactly what you say, right? It might be like even like words mix up, miscommunication, things like that, or like people don't like you, people like you, that plays an influence. There's like a lot more variables in life. Do you like the simplicity to comp sci in terms of logic, or no, sometimes that drives you crazy?
I feel like this answer surprises even me because math and comp sci are always two very logically based fields, but I think
Mm,
having a bit of just uncertainty in general, I think that's good. Just for variety, just for that unpredictability, I think if you could logic everything out, it would be sort of boring. Like, what's the point?
mm, mm,
We're the smartest animals on this planet, and I feel like if you could just logic your way through everything with other people, then I feel like something's lost there. Like,
huh,
surely there's more to us than just logic.
mm. Well, we're very irrational people, right?
Yes, we are.
Irrational beings, right? We don't.
Feelings don't make sense.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah,
Right. You kind of sound like a statistician in a way because it's like you kind of like the uncertainty, you know what I mean? And the it injects a little bit more fun into life instead of everything being predictable. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So is there like a comp sci, like I don't know, a joy to this specific type of logic? Not
Yeah,
really.
yeah, there is. I mean, at the end of the day, you know that right is right and wrong is wrong. There's no half truths in either computer science or math. You're either
Hmm.
right or you're wrong,
Mm.
and
And that's it,
I
right?
think I think there's something satisfying about that, you know?
Mm. Do you feel like the truth you get in math is like big T truth, you know? Or it's like it's just I guess what is truth? You know what I mean? Is truth only obtainable by logical means, or are there other ways to get to truth?
I actually hold the opinion that math is something we made up.
Hmm.
Like, obviously, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, but even like Euclid, geometry, his books, The Elements, his great work of logic, it's still dependent on axioms, things that he just assumed to be true because everyone thought they were,
Hmm.
and his axioms just happen to be the most convenient. And
Right. Like a plane, a point,
yeah,
things like that. But then there's like non-Euclidean
yeah,
geometry, and then things no longer in Euclidean geometry no longer work.
yeah. If
There.
you can just change a pillar in the foundation of math, is it really truth? And in my opinion, no, it's not.
Hmm. Right. But it models things so well. Do you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't like there's exceptions to it, but then you said like you're the opinion that math is made up, right? But why then does it model our world so well? Like the example I can think of now is pi. You know, like
Mhm.
that doesn't seem like something we'd invent out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's irrational, first of all. Why would someone create like an irrational number? We think in terms of rational numbers, right? Numbers that can end in a way, right? So is pi just something out there, but or something we invented?
Okay, yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. But I think that the tools we created in math, we did make up. Like, for example, you bring up pi, which is
Mm,
found everywhere,
mm,
but we made up the symbol for it. We made up a lot more uses for it than the natural world has for it. For example, in the
mm.
natural world, it's in circles.
Yes.
And well, circles are everywhere, but we use pi for a lot of different things in math where you wouldn't that have seemingly have no relation to circles.
Mm,
The normal distribution,
yeah.
1 over root pi appears out of nowhere.
Mm,
And there's also imaginary numbers, which, I mean, the name implies we literally just made them up because we wanted a solution to x squared equals -1. And I think that even though imaginary numbers have a lot of uses, especially in modeling physics, so I think
mm.
this goes back to your point of, oh, math models things so well. I think it's because we made it up in a way to suit our needs. We made the tool, so therefore the tool is always going to be useful to us.
Gotcha, gotcha. I kind of like that. You know, we made the tools, you know, and then we manipulated nature to suit our needs in a way, right? Pi,
Mhm,
it's just a circle, but then we manipulated it to you know, like normal distribution model, probabilistic things in our lives, right? I guess like business forecast, things like that.
mhm,
That kind of brings me to another topic of interest in technology. Right. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for technology. We'd be able to talk to each other and whatnot. Right. But humans, for most of history, right, it's very sustenance living for
mhm,
most people, anyways.
mhm,
Right. You gotta grow food to eat, otherwise you'll starve. Right. And maybe some people lord it over others and that they're rich so they could hire people to do the work for them and they'd govern over these people, right, as kings
mhm.
or nobles or whatnot. Right. So what do you think about technology since the Industrial Revolution? Has it helped humanity in general, or it's like it's unleashed some new evils that kind of counteract any good that it did?
I think it just maximized the evil that we already had.
Hmm.
Uh, for example, greed. Humans
Hmm.
have, I think humans have always been greedy.
Hmm.
Every major religion mentions greed or jealousy in some way
Hmm.
and denounces it. But the Industrial Revolution just uh, because before the Industrial Revolution and before like the arrival of mass centralized technology,
Hmm.
everyone's technology level, whether they were rich or poor,
Hmm.
was about the same.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
I mean, the best example I can think of off the top of my head would be medicine. Back in the 1400s, doesn't matter if you were rich or poor, the Black Death came for you,
Mm-hmm.
and there was nothing you could do about it.
Right.
But I think in today's society,
With COVID.
yeah, I'm gonna compare it to COVID now because sometimes, and this is, I think, a really unfortunate reality, especially here in America, the quality of care that you get. The technology's out there. We have life-saving technologies that can help people with COVID,
Mm.
but because of the way health economics and healthcare work in America, the quality of healthcare you get a lot of the times depends on what you can put out of your pocket.
Mm. Right. But does the lowest quality healthcare match is better than what was 1600s, 1400s? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
have we made, like you said, that it's technology has brought out the worst in humans, but has it also brought out the best? You know, also, like in the example of greed that you bring up, right? Greed, if harnessed the right way, it could also be used for good things. Like if you want a good, better life, right? Instead of drawing water from the well every day because you're lazy, you invent a pump, or like you create a water wheel to generate power for you, things like that. Do you think that it's brought us like the other side of bringing out the bad, the other side of the coin is bringing out the good that never existed before, or the bad has outweighed the good?
I would say it has brought out a lot of good. For example, even though I mentioned greed, is the
Mm,
American dream at its core not greed?
mm,
People came here searching for better life, searching for, I mean, prosperity.
mm-hmm,
I don't think greed is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, everyone wants to live a better life,
mm,
but there comes a point where, you have all this money and like the richest people in the world don't know what they can even spend all their money on because they can't. I think there comes a certain point where you have enough money and you honestly aren't going to get any happier from hoarding more of it
mm. Why do you think all this money is able to conglomerate among certain people?
because the people with the technology, the people that own a lot of this technology, uh, when you own this much technology, you have a lot of you have a lot of power. You're the one who produces.
Mm,
We have in this economy, we have producers and we have consumers. And if you're the supply side, if you're the producer, that's you get to call a lot of the prices.
mm,
There was no such thing as owning a factory before the Industrial Revolution. Sure, you could own a big tract of land and a lot of horses and have a lot of servants,
mm,
but there comes a breaking point to that. Horses still need to be fed. Uh, people still need to be fed.
mm,
Unlike machines who can work day or night
mm,
on water, steam, or now it's electricity. It's just not the same being a landlord versus in medieval times versus being a factory owner or a C-suite executive now. It's just not the same. There's
mm.
so much more limitless power that comes with the technology that we have today.
You think people are more powerful nowadays than back then? Because I feel like back then is much more brutal. Do you know what I mean? Nowadays, it's like, I think the richest people now, maybe Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, right? Mark Zuckerberg. Like, they don't have that power. If they violate the law, they kill someone, they shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, right? I think like there's going to be consequences for them, even if they're in a powerful position. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Not saying that there's like everyone's equal before the law. We like to say that in the US. Like, of course, it's hard to meet that because when you have money or power, influence, you can get away a little bit more than the average person.
Mm.
You can kind of finesse your way a little bit through the system. But um, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I would still think that the most powerful people now are actually more powerful than the most
Mm,
powerful people a long time ago. The most powerful people a long time ago used force because I feel like they used force because they had to.
mm,
Fear kept the population in line, whether it was fear of the executioner or fear of an invading army. I remember just from European history how the state of Russia began because the leader of Moscow had the largest army. So uh, bigger army diplomacy.
mm.
Uh, Therefore, he gets the power. But people now, Elon Musk doesn't need to shoot and kill people to still be powerful. He can tweet something, and that has way more power
The pen
than
is mightier than the
yeah,
sword.
yeah, yeah. It really is. The
Mm.
tweet is mightier than the sword. I mean, I don't know how his Twitter acquisition is going now, but
The tweet is mightier
yeah,
than the pen, even,
yeah,
right?
yeah. A single tweet from Elon Musk invalidates like every single article that brings up dirt on him ever.
Mm, mm,
And
right.
speaking of dirt on him, you said how there'd be there would still be legal consequences if he went and shot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, but would there be? He's committed so many human rights violations in other countries that simply aren't powerful enough to stand up to him. In developing countries that that he has mines in, that he exploits children in, and yet he seems to be doing fine. I don't see cases against him for his crimes against humanity.
But this is the tricky part, right? Because when you say that he commits human rights violation, right? The thing is like he himself doesn't do it directly,
Mm,
right? It's like there's the buffer between him and I guess the people being exploited, and that's the corporation, right?
yeah,
Or like you hire contractors, right? And this gets into the thing with like supply chain. It's like if Apple gets, where do we get our computer chips from? Like the resources. A lot of it comes from Africa, right? And does Apple or these big companies get involved directly? I don't think they do, right? There's like a couple of levels between Apple and the people mining. And so why do you trace it directly to Elon Musk? You know what I mean? Or can it be traced directly to Elon Musk? Or is it because the way our society is structured, people will be exploited like that, and it's hard to pinpoint it onto people.
I think I'm just pinning it onto Elon Musk because exploitation like this happens all the time, and I think it's just easier for simplicity's sake to pinpoint it on Elon Musk or to pin it on
Mm,
his company, even though you're right, he's not the one directly. He's not directly like beating up children in Africa, of course.
mm,
He's hiring. He directs Tesla to hire some contractors that hire supply chain logistics companies and goes through a lot of degrees of separation before it finally gets to the actual exploitation.
mm,
But I still think that him owning the company that requires these raw materials that are being very unethically sourced, that
mm,
yes, some of the blame still can go to him. And in a sense, some of the blame falls on all of us for even consuming these. But
mm,
at a certain point, you have no power in what you do. There's We all own electronics.
mm,
There's no such thing as ethical consumption of electronics. But we all do it and we don't feel any guilt from it because what other option do we have?
And it's also because I think you're many degrees away from the
Yeah.
violation part, right? But do you think we're better off with it? You know what I mean? It's like, yes, people suffered so that I could get an iPhone, or people suffered so that I can talk on Zoom with Alan right now. But is it worth it? You know what I mean? Has it bettered society in a way? Like, are the top people able to like do something that is worth the suffering? Or is it just like, no, it's just everyone's stuck in their own bubbles?
I'd say, I mean, if I'm just gonna speak for us, I mean, we have the technology now, so I think for us when we're so far away from the exploitation that's actually happening,
Mm,
like we have the privilege of just turning the blind eye to it, even though our progress, our technology always comes at the sacrifices of others who may or may not get the credit for it.
mm. So if Joe Biden invited you into his office right now and went like, Alan, I want you to fix this problem. Do you have like a way you could fix it? Or it's just like, no way, man. It's can't do anything even though you're president and you're inviting me to fix it.
Uh, Absolutely not. I don't think any one person or even any entity, like any single entity can fix it because supply chains are all over the world.
Mm,
So
fi-
even if
let,
one country wanted to do it,
mm.
they're quite literally going up against the world.
What if like Elon Musk, you said that this traces back to him in a way, or for simplicity's sake, we're gonna blame him, right? What if he heard this podcast and he was like, man, I never thought about this before, and I'm gonna try to get rid of this unethical practice. You think it'd work, or it's still not powerful enough? Like the Frankenstein you've created is now unstoppable.
I think even someone as powerful as Elon Musk can't do it himself because he has competitors. He's doing all this unethical sourcing because it creates the highest number on the bottom line.
Mm,
So when he switches to more ethical alternatives, his product prices go up, his stock prices drop, his investors are unhappy, and his competitors who are still unethically sourcing do better as a result of Elon Musk trying to make the world a better place.
right. If you step out,
Yeah.
people will fill in the vacuum, and we're
Mhm.
kind of just back to where we started.
Yeah, so I
How do we
say
make it up
Elon
for
Musk
people
did all
then?
this, but it's really anyone in Elon Musk's position would do the same thing.
Mm. So how do we make it up to people? It's like for these people who are digging wells, do we then like create schools for them, dig a well so that they have clean water to drink, like improve the living facilities they're in as a minimum to like what they've done for like company, or is it like just too far removed and it's just like two different worlds we live in?
I think it's just two different worlds we live in. There's ways we try to help
Mm,
these countries and these communities, but there's never any attention going to it,
mm,
you know. When I turn on the news now, I don't hear about UN humanitarian aid.
right. But has life gotten better for the people at the bottom compared to 300 years ago? Was their type of living then better? Do you know what I mean?
I think it has. Even people at the very bottom now, they're a lot healthier. They're living a lot longer,
Mm,
in large part thanks to very basic medical care that honestly doesn't cost a lot. Like a lot of life-saving equipment doesn't cost a lot and can be distributed widely. Like, for example, the mosquito net. That doesn't cost a
mm,
lot to make, but it saves millions of lives every year by preventing malaria. But I would say that the gap in between the top and the bottom has gotten so much larger, and I think that's a large part of the discontent is it's not about the poor living conditions.
Mm,
that the bottom of society are facing right now. It's that the top and the bottom seem to be living in two completely different worlds.
mm,
Uh, Before, the landlord could look down on his castle and see all his subjects.
mm.
Right now, Elon Musk can just put on a VR headset and go into the metaverse and not have to think about anything.
I see.
Doesn't have to
So
interact with the rest of us.
so we've become more disconnected too in terms of power
Yeah,
structure.
yeah, ironically, even with all
Even
this
though
connected
with more
technology,
all these connected
yeah.
data, you're smart. You're smart. You're thinking. Yeah, you can see the irony in things. Nice. But okay, we become more disconnected even though we have more technology that can connect us, right? Is this the inevitable situation we find ourselves in, or we made certain choices as humans, as a race, and we've gotten to this point because of the decisions we've decided on? I guess I'm trying to say, is it inevitable or result of predictable decisions we've made?
I'm not sure. I
Mm,
know a lot of people, especially like our generation, the younger generation, likes to pin a lot of this inequality on capitalism and
mm,
how since pretty much the whole world adopted this new economic system, it's created this huge gap of inequality.
mm.
But I wonder, even if the world had adopted a different economic system, would we still be in the same scenario where the
Mm,
inequality wouldn't be the same ways of showing the inequality, uh, but the inequality would still somehow be there.
gotcha. Do you think inequality is something natural or human made?
I think it is. I think it is.
Natural.
Yeah.
Mm. But it's the degree of what inequality we have. The degree of inequality we have now is unnatural, would you
Yeah.
say? But it's also hard to define at what degree does it become unnatural too, right?
Yeah.
Mm. That's something I've talked before on this podcast, I think with Alan, another Alan, about actually. It's about measuring inequality and at what point does it become too unequal, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if you know about the Pareto distribution. That was what we talked about. So
Oh.
I'm very interested in if mathematicians, or maybe you're a comp sci major, I don't know, maybe you'll eventually use machine learning, AI, to like model the sweet spot of inequality. That kind of
Mhm.
sounds horrible. Like, how can you say inequal? There's a sweet spot to
Uh,
inequality, but
what's
it's
the
like,
socially optimal amount of inequality?
right, socially optimal, right? Because what do you think like goes into inequality? Why is it something natural, do you think?
We all have a desire to be better.
Or individuals do different things, right?
Yeah.
And that sometimes leads to success, sometimes leads to failure, right? And
Mhm.
so that creates the inequality,
We
right?
are, by definition, not all the same. So
Mm,
we'll have to be different. We'll have to be unequal.
hmm, I see. Now, um, I talked about capitalism. Our generation really doesn't like capitalism,
Yeah.
right? But has it like without capitalism, I don't think we could be here today, with this type of technology. Or do you think under another economic system we could have had? We could be here today.
We've had different economic systems throughout much of history, whether it was
Mm.
just no economic system at all, or just bartering,
That's the market
or
economy, right? That's pre-capitalism.
mm,
It's like village system, right? Just like barter,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But I think that's still a lot different. Even though there are markets, I think that's different from
Command.
capitalism in the sense of
Oh,
the capital part of capitalism. In a small village, the inequality in capital between like the richest village member and the poorest village member is a lot smaller than the inequality of the most impoverished nation and the richest nation in the world.
mm.
And I think it just doesn't compare. I don't think that
But the quality
calling
of life changes too, right? Within the village, it's
does.
like everyone has the same quality of life,
Mhm.
right? But in like, I guess the US, like if you're really rich, you can own a huge house. You might not even have to step out of the house. You could get food brought to you. You
Yeah.
could hold parties at your house. You could. It's
Playing
like
in creative mode.
playing. Okay, yeah, exactly. You're playing in creative mode, but yes, there's that aspect that like it's very different. Not everyone in the U.S. is like that, and the poorest of the poor, they are they'll. It's like they don't even come close to that. They can't even. That's like their dream, right?
Yeah.
That's untouchable. But like that definitely sets a new standard for quality of life,
Mm.
doesn't it? And if it's like something to aim for, it's like let's try to pull these people up to. But do people want that is another thing. They're still like hunter gatherers or tribes. They just want to go on with their way of life. Or is that unpreservable in like modern society? I don't know.
I think, unfortunately, that type of life is unpreservable,
Mm,
whether it's modern society just expanding and encroaching on their ancestral lands,
mm,
or our diseases doing the same thing. And like at some point, there's going to be contact in between modern society and uh, older, more, I don't want to use the word primitive, but just
mm.
older society in general, hunter-gatherers. Like you've heard about the case about the preacher trying to go to Sentinel Island, right? There's like this island off the coast of India that hosts.
No.
Oh yeah. So there's this island off the coast of India
Uh-huh.
that hosts a hunter-gatherer population. It's called Sentinel Island.
Oh.
And for years, the Indian government hasn't allowed anyone to go there because of the worries that they might bring. Because it's an island, these hunter-gatherers know no other way of life. They don't know anything about modern society. So if you, as a member of modern society, bring your modern clothes, modern technology, and diseases that they have no immunity against, but you do because of modern medical care,
Mm,
what's going to happen to them? It's almost like humans having the first contact with aliens in a way.
mm. Or the story of the Native Americans in American
Yes,
history. Right.
yes.
So it seems like the people living on Sentinel Island, like they're in a very fragile equilibrium where they could
Mhm.
continue life as is, but any outward pressure or force would completely upend their lifestyle and they would be
Yeah,
compelled to change. Is that something that capitalism created, or is that just natural, like how humans operate? And it's just because capitalism is the dominant system, and so it results that most of the world is operating under this type of system.
I think capitalism in particular, the system of capitalism,
Hmm.
spreads very easily
Why?
because one of the tenets of capitalism is growth, right?
Mm,
Your margins go up, your business does well,
mm,
and another population adopting capitalism automatically means a bigger market.
hmm. Do you think I agree with you. Growth is a, a very push factor in capitalism,
Mhm.
right? You want to grow, you don't want to remain stagnant,
Yeah.
right? But isn't like when we're growing up, people also tell us, you guys, we everyone wants to grow, you want to grow, you want to get better, everyone wants to get better. And so is this get better mentality a capitalist mentality, or is it just something natural that humans want to get better? And that's the driving force behind capitalism, because it taps into this human potential that other systems don't tap into. Like for serfs, if you're a serf for life, and your children are going to be serf, so and so and so and so on for
Mhm.
generation after generation. There's no hope for you, right?
Yeah.
So even if you're the smartest person on earth, you're still going to be growing potatoes. You know what I mean? Like it's not that growing potatoes is bad. I love eating potatoes, right? French fries, things like that. But like you're, because it doesn't take advantage of expanding human potential, right? Do we underestimate the power of the invisible hand?
I would say as much as there is a desire, a natural human desire to do
Mm,
better, to be better, to improve
mm,
yourself, and maybe sometimes to see yourself improve over others, even.
mm.
I'd say humans have. bit of competition in them
Competitive.
as well. I would say that there's also this natural human instinct for, fairness. I think humans do have innate desire for kindness and compassion and love.
Mm,
So I wouldn't say that capitalism would be the result of human character. It's not
mm,
like human character, it's not it's not like capitalism was a natural consequence of human character.
mm,
I wouldn't think that in the way that, I don't know, some people, I don't know, I just feel like it gets brought up in politics a bit where it's like, oh, capitalism is the system we have now, and we shouldn't change it because this is our natural human
mm,
system.
mm.
But I think there are other natural human virtues that capitalism doesn't highlight.
That's true. An extreme form of capitalism where it's extremely competitive, cutthroat,
Hmm.
right? That's not really good. People don't look, and that's where capitalism is attacked, the viciousness of competition, and ends justifying the means in a way. But within, I guess I was more trying to emphasize this idea of the creative spirit,
Mm.
idea of free will to choose what you want to do. Because
Mm.
before capitalism was written, well, the basic tenets of it was set by Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations, right? The book he wrote about it. And before that, the system he was trying to replace was mercantilism,
Mm.
right? It's where certain people in the government determine what goods are to be produced, how money is to be used, right? And so he was like, no, that's not actually very efficient. What's most efficient is to trust the invisible hand, right? Remain laissez-faire, right? Hands off, right? And let people do what business they want to do. And that eventually like made England one of the most wealthiest nations ever, right?
Yeah.
And a superpower. So it's like, but it's kind of like tying it to today. We want the government to do a lot of things for us today. So are we reverting back to a more mercantilism system, even though we don't want to admit it? Like government takes care of this and that for us, instead of like, if there's a problem here, let's solve it as individuals. If I can start a company and solve this problem.
I think we might be hitting a point where if a corporation has more power than the government, like for example,
All bets are off.
serfs are stuck being serfs forever
Mm,
because because someone who has power over them enforces it. And for example, let's just say there are communities that have been kept perpetually poor because of exploitation as a
mm,
result of corporations. Is that corporation not the same to these people they're exploiting as a landlord would be to a serf? Would it not
mm.
be a similar comparison and a
I
similar power dynamic there? If all
I
the money
think
sucked out of your community, even you could be the smartest person in the world and just not
mm,
have the money to show it and just not have the money to prove it and
hmm,
not have the money to attract other people to you.
right. But I feel that again, I'm not saying that there's no one being exploited, but then you say that all the money's being sucked out. But the thing is, like, if you're working for, like, let's say you're an Amazon warehouse worker, right? That's
Mhm.
where a lot of, we say in our society, is a lot of exploitations occurring. That's why the Amazon trade unions are forming,
Mm.
right, for the workers. But they're giving you a job, right? It might not be paying a lot, right? But what like what else do you have, you know what I mean? And maybe you could say, well, the reason that what else do you have is the reason they're being exploited. It's keeping them here in perpetuity because they can't do anything else. But like if Amazon's giving the money to these workers, how are they also sucking it out? Because you choose how you want to use that money, right? Or is it other forces besides Amazon is sucking out, like renting, the high cost of things? So as much as you make, then the renters take it. But then it's not just a corporation issue, it's just that then it's the renter's problem. And then the renter's going to go like, well, government's raising minimum wage. I got to pay for my stuff or repairs. So then it's the government. And then the government's like, no, it's these corporations. So it's like a circle jerk, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not sure. For example, tech jobs in the Bay Area. I mean, everyone knows they make a lot, but
Hmm.
when you adjust it for the cost of living in the Bay Area,
You're poor.
you know, are you really, if you're making a lot of money, but living costs a lot of money, are you really making a lot of
Mm,
money?
right. Unless you move somewhere else, right?
Yeah,
And remote worked.
yeah.
But I know what you mean. Yeah. You work so hard to get this dream job at a tech company and you're earning six figures, but that six figure is going down the drain because other people are sapping it from you,
Yeah.
right?
Like I remember in one of my gen ed classes that there was like, I think it was sociology, there was this topic of absolute poverty versus relative poverty. Absolute poverty where you the people in poverty literally don't have ways to survive. They literally
Mm,
don't have enough money to survive. Whereas relative poverty is more of you have what it takes to survive, but everyone else is so much richer than you that it
mm.
feels like
You're stuck.
you're not living. Yeah, you're stuck. You don't have the
Mm.
same standard of living.
You're working to your bone, right?
Yeah.
9 to 9 maybe, right? And then you don't even have time to use that money. Your weekends you just want to sleep in because you're just work to the bone during the week. No more energy left, right? No, that's an issue. It's happening in China too right now, right?
Yeah,
They're having a movement over
996.
it, right? Right? And I think the young people they're like, oh, I can't do this anymore, and I'm not going
Mhm.
to be part of this. But then we'll see how that turns out, right?
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about actually this absolute and relative in a way, absolute poverty, relative poverty, but also like what we see, right? We're benefited from iPhones, but the people making them or getting the raw materials, resources might not be, right? And so it seems like we're living in two different worlds. So then is life really what you make of it in the end? Because like life is so different for everyone across the world. There's no common purpose in humanity. Are we just all living in our own bubbles and we just make of life as what we make of it?
I think that although you are a factor in what your life becomes, you sometimes things are out of your control. I learned how to play a bit of poker in college, not for actual money or anything, just for fun. And sometimes you have a
Mm,
really good hand, but just by a stroke of luck, someone has a better one, and there's nothing you could have done. You you spent it all. You played your cards correctly, but sometimes you just can't beat the odds. So no, I feel like there's a limit as to what you as an individual can do.
mm. How about mentality wise? It's like even though you're limited in what you can do, but even the worst situation, if you think positively, as bad as, if you think negatively and you go insane or crazy
Mm.
because of it. Does mentality have a big part in life, or are we just lying to ourselves in a way?
I think mentality does.
Mm,
You can give up, and maybe something that you would have done if you hadn't give up would have worked, and you just didn't do it because you thought there was nothing you can do.
mm,
Like sometimes there is nothing you can do, and that's just a fact. But I don't think that should stop you from trying.
mm,
But at the same time, you shouldn't get the false hope that you can change everything around you either.
right.
I think it's important to know when you've tried your best. Know
Mm,
that you've put all the effort that you could into it, and while sometimes it's not the outcome that you wanted, just accept that's what you've got.
mm. You were a very good student in high school, and I
Yeah.
don't know how in college if you're still that way. But do you feel the rules of life change as you go in different stages? Maybe in high school, it's everyone wants to get in a good college. Then college is like, no, everyone wants to get in a good job, right? And then maybe after you get a good job, no, it's like meeting the prettiest girl out there, or making the most money, or finding your life's purpose, And because the rules of life are constantly changing, your goal and what you make of life also constantly keeps changing so that there is no constant in a way.
I think that maybe these goals, of course, there are different goals
Mm,
throughout each stage of your life, but I think they could all be tied back to common values
mm,
that maybe that you had. For instance, getting into the best college, getting into the best job, that could just be you having a competitive spirit. Like
mm,
maybe you just have value competition.
mm.
So you want to outperform everyone else.
Right. But
And
then,
although the goals change, although the ways you express that value change, the value itself doesn't.
mm, let's say that, you were a competitive person, but then because of COVID, there's no one next to you.
Mhm.
And so you lose that drive to be up top. You don't even know what's it means to be up top or
Mhm.
succeed, because it's completely upended the game. The rules of the game have changed, right? So you said that, that value persists, but some people might just give up or like are paralyzed because what the heck am I doing? What the heck am I doing,
Yeah,
Is that a problem, or is it a temporary realization that people can overcome, that you know rules change?
I think it's a perspective shift for them. If
Mm,
you've always been so competitive and then COVID hit and makes you realize that maybe there's not that much thrill in competing anymore, I
mm,
don't I wouldn't say that's giving up. I would say that's your values changing.
mm, mm.
COVID was a big thing for a lot of people.
Right. Oh, well, for
So
everyone almost,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, everyone, almost everyone.
Mm.
Unless you were rich enough to sing Imagine at the start of it and not care about anything, then maybe COVID didn't
But you
change
still
much
hear
for
the
you.
news, unless you're like completely like cold-hearted, or you're living a self-sufficient mansion, then I think everyone's impacted, even the richest of the rich. Yeah. You compared life kind of to the game of poker, where you're sometimes given a good hand and some people have better hands,
Mhm.
right? So does life really come down to chance in a way, or sometimes the way you play cards, you get a certain result? Do you deserve, do we deserve things in our lives?
I like to use the word deserve. I used it a lot. Mostly, I think I'm pretty quick to judge
Mm,
on whether one person is deserving of a thing or
mm,
not. And so, speaking for myself,
mm,
I would like for everyone to get what they deserve. But at the
mm,
same time, they don't. Some people deserve, I think some people deserve a lot more than what they get, and other
mm,
people don't deserve that much, but they get it anyways. But then there's the third thing. Who am I to decide who deserves what? Like I'm just a
mm,
person. That's
mm.
just my judgment, and everyone has a different judgment of what people should deserve and what other people don't.
Now
And
you're
some
very
people don't
mathematical
even,
in comp sci. What is the definition that you put on deserve? Or is it very hard to define? It's like freedom, it's how do you define freedom,
yeah, like how
It's
do you
it's one of
define
those
freedom?
things.
Well, you can only define as what it's not
Or
almost.
evil, right?
Yeah.
Or tragedy. Like, because like you say, like, everyone wants to get what they deserve, right? Or
Mhm.
for others to get what they deserve, right? But can we but it's almost like we've we haven't even set the basic axiom of deserve yet, and we say
Yeah.
like, like you
Mhm.
deserve this.
Mhm.
Oh, what does it mean to deserve something? Because I'll put in my 2 cents on this, and you could kind of think about what does it mean to deserve. I don't think we deserve anything, or I deserve anything. I think that things just it's hard to kind of explain. I think that, not like, you heard the saying, like, the only guarantees in life are death and taxes,
Mhm.
right? So, like, why do I as a human being deserve anything? Like, people will say, like, it's your human right to have water or food to eat, or to be yourself, or like, but I don't think that. Like, based on the conversation we have, it really seems like we're just like, not like insignificant beings in the grand scheme of things, right? But of course, this thinking is also very dangerous in that, dictators might think that way and go like, yeah, you're nothing, and commit genocide, right? And that's not
Yeah.
good either. So, but to deserve something, I feel that it's very easy to put yourself on a high horse that's not there, and realize like emperor has no clothes.
Mm. But I think, yeah, now that you mention these human rights, yeah, yeah, that would be an example of like people deserving stuff. Like
Mm,
everyone deserving food, everyone deserving water, everyone deserving shelter, deserving respect, even.
dignity. Mm,
Yeah, dignity. I would say as someone who definitely thinks that some people deserve some things and other people deserve other things,
mm,
that deserving is tied to people the same way that their traits and their personalities, and it's just part of who they are,
mm,
I think. Like when I think of someone as deserving or done something, I think of who they are and how that thing they deserve would fit them. Like with Thor and people trying to pick up his hammer.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Are you
Those who
worthy or
deserve his
not?
hammer can pick it up.
Right. You got to be worthy.
Yeah,
Elevator's not worthy. All right, so Thor's hammer, you use that example.
yeah,
Deserve. But some people don't get. They deserve it. We all think they deserve it, but they don't get something. How do you
yeah.
explain that then? I don't know.
Because uh because I think that the world isn't fair, that sometimes people don't get what they deserve.
But you just find deserve as like Thor's hammer, you're worthy. So if you're worthy, you'll get it. You know what I mean? But then if it this is like the counter example, or like the paradox, the issue at hand. It's like if deserve comes naturally with the person, a character, and who they are, it's the embodiment of who they are, then why don't they get it sometimes? It's like Thor not being able to pick up the hammer, you know? That's a tough question.
It's because when I say deserve as part of who they are,
Mm.
I mean that's who I think they are.
Oh.
Deserving is a judgment, like in a way is a judgment that I put on someone, and if someone else says, "Oh, maybe you deserve X or they deserve Y," that's a judgment call. When I say you deserve something or you don't, that's me making a value judgment.
Mm.
So that would be like uh, people thinking that, oh, maybe Iron Man can pick up the hammer. Like
Mm.
people may think Iron Man's worthy, but
Mm.
he's not.
So we can't, eh, since we're all third person parties, we can't
Yeah,
tell worthiness or deservedness, I guess.
yeah,
Right? It's something intrinsic that we can't touch upon or spot.
yeah. So
Huh.
although the things we deserve never changes, whether we get them or not does.
Although the things we deserve never changes, whether we get them or not
Yeah,
does.
yeah, like sometimes you get what you deserve just through a stroke of luck. And some other times, if you're in a bad
I'm
place.
still trying to figure that out
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Because like if you whether you get it or not.
Everyone deserves food and water, but if a famine hits, you're not going to get it.
Right, right.
So
Hmm,
sometimes it is based on circumstance. Although you still deserve food and water, you still do, but you're not going to get it
hmm. I
just
see.
through a cruel twist of fate.
I guess we could think of it this way: deserve and not, right? That's
Mhm.
based on the person, and that's something that we said we can't really tell,
Yeah.
right? Or it's out of our bounds too. But then there's the reality, deserve or not,
Mhm.
right? The best situation is when deserve meets. If you draw this out in the of
Yeah.
tic tac, right? Deserve is good, not works out, right? And so we say like when the person's not deserving and gets something, that's like Why are the
Yeah.
bad guys winning, you know?
Hmm.
And then it's like when you deserve it and you don't get it, and it's like, why did the good guy lose?
Hmm.
Right? Those are the two situations we have to explain. But why does reality not match with the person at times? Or is that also something beyond our comprehension?
I like to explain it away as the world being not fair or the world being
The
cruel.
uncertainty.
Yeah, like,
Hmm. Why is the world cruel? Because of this uncertainty. That's what makes life interesting.
yeah, I mean, if it was certain that everyone got what they deserved, it would be
Boring.
boring. Yeah, there's always that uncertainty of
Hmm.
you getting what you don't deserve or someone else not getting what they deserve.
Hmm.
And I think that's just part of
Is that cruelty or a blessing in disguise?
it's cruel when you don't get what you deserve.
Uh-huh.
It's a blessing when you
When you
when
get what you don't deserve.
yeah. Well, like what you get something positive that you didn't deserve. Yeah.
In the long run, it could be cruelty. You get a
Yeah.
job that you didn't deserve,
Mhm.
but then you don't actually know how to do the job. And so it becomes a cruelty to you
Yeah.
in a way because you realize how short you are and you're not fit for the role, right? And that could gnaw at a person's soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I don't know, it's hard. It's this thing of where huh, whether we deserve something or not, we can't even tell, but then we want to match it to reality. And sometimes it's like it's almost like type 1 and type 2 error, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
it's weird situations that we encounter in life. How do you explain those? I'm still trying to figure out. Yeah. Maybe you'll get closer to than me someday. You're
And then
very
there's the
logical.
other definition of deserve that I use.
Hmm. What is that?
Consequences. This is like exclusively like I use deserve for consequences. Like you do something, if you get, and a certain consequence will follow you because of it.
Tit for tat in a way.
Yeah, yeah, sort of like karma.
What comes around goes around.
Yeah, that. So if you do
Hmm.
something bad and something bad happens to you because of that, you get what you deserve. I also
Hmm.
use it like that.
Do you think there's a higher group of beings or a being out there? Kind of like you mentioned a lot of Marvel references,
Mhm.
right? They also have like a higher group of being that just watches everything happen. What do they call it? Like watchmen, watchers, something like that, right? They don't get involved, but they're just kind of watching everything unfold. You think like this is just play put on for them, or like there's like a purpose behind it all?
Not so sure. There's always the theory that we live in a simulation, and if
Hmm.
so, uh, I don't know. If we live in a simulation, what are we simulated for?
I don't know.
Just for the
Yeah.
simulator's pleasure, or maybe they're working out an experiment. I
Yeah,
don't know.
we don't know, right? Yeah. Anything you have for me?
I mean, not really. I mean, how have you been? Like, just I haven't
Mm,
seen you in so long.
I think COVID was a low point in life. And it's not low point in like depression or like deaths in family, but it's just like I finally ran out of steam and the
Hmm.
steam that kept me going since high school.
You
You
burnt
know what I
out.
mean? Huh?
You burnt out.
I guess you could say, but then like high school, like you know me, junior year of high school, I was already kind of burnt out, you know.
Yeah.
So then what was I like super burnt out, like Chris burnt out? Was I Ash by the time I left college? I don't know, you know. So like it's a low point, but it's also like a reset. Like I just, especially March 2020 till I would say maybe December 2021, a good year, a year and a half actually. I just didn't talk to people because I just felt that um, people come and go in life. You know what I mean? And so there's no point in keeping relationships or trying to maintain relationships because in the end it didn't matter because I felt that I tried to keep um, or form relationships with other people and keep them. But it's like when everyone graduates, what the heck, you know? Or like COVID comes, everyone's just in their own houses, like what the heck, you know? No one reaches out, or no one does anything. No one everyone just goes their own way. But I guess this podcast is like my redemption effort in a way, you know, like after all that, it's like maybe this is the maybe kind of like I don't know if it's to redeem myself, or like this is just a new start, because we are reconnecting, right? We just say like we haven't talked in a while, but I think you were always part of like our group, you know, in Berkeley Heights with Sean, Peter, Joseph, you,
Yeah.
right? You're there, right? You're 1 grade younger than them, of course, and so they're kind of a more clingy group, and then maybe you kind of felt left out sometimes, but that's why I wanted to include you before like I move on to the next group, because this is
Mhm.
podcast 18, right? We might get one more Berkeley Heights person in here, but you know, I just think that I don't know. I don't know if that made sense, but
Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
I feel like they were also in high school they were also closer,
Mm,
partly because they're all the same grade.
hmm.
So, and I never really thought much of it. Mm.
Yeah. Um, Maybe if you want to,
How's,
huh?
yeah, how's work? I mean,
Hmm. It's different in that it's not in like college grades, things like that. It's an individual effort, right? And it's a lot of thinking. If you listen to my podcast with the other Alan, we talk a lot about what work is like. It's not like as mentally stimulating in a way. You know, you're not meeting new people, learning like new things, you know, like new concepts, things like that. There's like a goal at work, right? Your job is to get the company money, or like to improve the standing, right? Or to get your brand out there, right? So there's that goal versus just like being measured by grades or like individual achievement. Um, but I mean, I've only been working for less than a year, so like I'm not in the place to give advice, but that's just how I see things. Maybe if we do another podcast in a year or so, or less than a year, my views might change already by then. I'm still in the formation stage, you know, the hodgepodge right now, conglomerating, trying to figure things out. I haven't completely figured things out yet. Yeah,
mm, yeah, I
yeah.
mean, have any of us? We're still working through it.
Do you think we'll eventually, at some point in our life, figure things out, or where it's a constant journey of figuring things out, and even by death, we still are trying to figure things out,
I think we're
just to a
always
lesser
trying to
degree?
figure things out. There's a reason why midlife crises exist, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Mm,
Right. But even when you're old, still trying to figure things out. Past midlife crisis, I think. But yeah, well, I think it's about time. So, Alan, thank you for coming on, and
yeah,
I hope to do this again with you sometime soon.
yeah. Thanks for inviting me on. It was a
Okay.
pleasure. Yep,
Good night, everyone.
yep. Good night.